All right. Got some fish. Actually,
this is my fish cleaning station. I got my cutting board. I always like to wear gloves, gives me better grip. The Bubba knife and the Mister Twister knife. I'm gonna do a little comparison. My boy Danny Vu was like, hey, you should do a comparison. The video wasn't comprehensive enough, so here we go. I'm just gonna do a couple fish. All right, so cutting board, and I love having cut paper towels. This is an old timer trick, but as the slime builds up, I know people use cardboard, but I just use a small piece of paper towel, wipe it off, and then it keeps that traction not so slimy on the board. Bubba blade, cordless, right? And my fish. And I also have a bucket here and water. So what I like to do when I'm cutting fish, without getting too detailed, is rinse the fish with water, and that removes the slime. But this water is clean, so the slime issue shouldn't be as bad. All right, let's get into it.
and let's get into it. I'm going to start with the Bubba blade. If you look at the Bubba blade, you'll see it's extremely sharp and it's got a little bit of a contour. And what I've noticed with panfish is you want straight cuts. And as this thing cuts into the meat, sometimes you have an issue of cutting too deep and ruining the fillets, and it turns more into a mess. But if, in contrast, if you look at the Mister Twister blade, look how straight that is, right? Look how straight that is. It is straight. It gives you nice, even cuts. Again, the blade is great, super sharp. But for panfish, I really prefer the Twister blades. And as soon as I figured out that this thing actually fits into the Bubba, dude, game over, game over. Okay, let's get into it.
Hey, if you're with me this far, I'd love a subscribe and a like on the video. Appreciate the support, and leave a comment if you found it interesting. Thanks. So here's your standard metro size crappie, right? About 9 inches. So here's the 8, and you got about another inch. So 9-inch crappie. So I'm gonna use this blade and give it a go. And you'll notice I like to favor this end because it's the straightest, and this end is too tapered for my liking. On the Twister, you can go anywhere, but I'll just do one fish with this blade, and the result will be very similar, but it will not be the same, unfortunately. So again, I will favor moving the fish down to the end of the cutting board. Incredibly sharp fillet knife. There's no doubt about that. And this is where I run into some issues, like. So when you do the analysis, you miss some meat there and you miss some of the meat up here. Just because of the taper of the blade, it doesn't lay flat. Again, you get a lot of it, but it's not exactly all the meat. So I usually do one cut down, and then I do a little trigger pull to get the turn started. And then I push down. This is flat, but if you angle it just a hair, it glides over the bones. Again, not perfect, but you'll see what happens. And this is how I learned from my father-in-law. Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been doing. This side's better, but you can see that the first cut wasn't as close to the bottom. So, discard. And again, like I said, not necessary, but I'm going to show you for example purposes. The slime gets all crazy, and all you got to do is wipe. I just use a half, and you can get your blade, just keep things clean. Again, it's just OCD stuff, but it is what it is. I don't have my fork with me, but yeah. So I'll just use my fingertips. And again, if you go up towards the tip, it's too much of an angle. You will lose meat. Alright, I should have just... So I'll try to favor So now, is there some meat? Yes, there is some meat left over. Again, not the cleanest. That's kind of why I'm not discrediting the blade itself, because it is sharp and it works very well for bigger game fish, but just for panfish, I don't prefer it. See the hang up? That's because it's a little too sharp again, and it got hung up on the meat, and this side's always a little better for some reason. There's some meat loss right up here. You can see that right there, right? Now, I know I didn't take out the rib bones, just to, I'll clean that up in a second, but I just wanted to show you the Bubba blade. Now, moving into Twister land. Look at this. Oh! That makes me so happy. Not a big deal, there's plenty of them. Okay, so let's move this fillet up here. Move this fillet up here, and I'm sorry that I am burning time, but we're just gonna make this work. Now, the Mister Twister blade, Mister Twister. There's the model number upside down, but I'll show you how this guy acts compared to the Bubba blade. Remember, the blade's nice and straight. Panfish, beware. Just glides over effortlessly, and you get a lot more meat, and the cuts are more consistent. Right, and then just turn that sucker right there. Look at that, just so much smoother and more effortless. Here, now this is the fillet. All right, you can see the uniformity in the fillet itself. Now I'll go over here, use my thumb, and push down. Boom, right? So look at the fillet, very, very clean. Look at the skin, very, very uniform, and pretty much removed all the meat, right? Not much waste. And I'll do this last piece right here, gaining a little, and this is where I'm like, hey, if you had a paper towel, you just wipe that up, keep it nice and clean, and boom. All right, let's get in here in this one. Boom. Look at that. You got two fillets, all the same. The straight blade, it's not as aggressive, the teeth, and all you gotta do is trim up the bones. I'll do one, and then you just gotta repeat. Obviously, you want to have it with the skin. I just did it for demonstration purposes, but usually what I do is I pull the trigger once, pull the trigger twice, kind of get that cut set, and then I just start scooping while pulling the trigger. Of course, with the skin on, that's my preferred method, but it is what it is at this time. For demonstration purposes, there's your slab of meat, and there's usually pin bones right here for anyone that's just getting into filleting that you have to remove with just a knife, and then your fillet is ready to rock and roll and consume. So let's see if I can get this going. Hopefully you found that helpful, interesting, that I prefer the Twister blade over the Bubba blade. Again, they both work, but I just feel like you get more meat and more consistent cuts with the Twister blade over the Bubba blade. And that's all. And it's interchangeable. And I think the blades are about 15 bucks. If you've been struggling with that type of stuff, this is exactly why you'd want to go with the Twister blade. Hopefully you found that helpful, interesting, that I prefer the Twister blade over the Bubba blade. Again, they both work, but I just feel like you get more meat and more consistent cuts with the Twister blade over the Bubba blade. And that's all. And it's interchangeable. And I think the blades are about 15 bucks. If you've been struggling with that type of stuff, this is exactly why you'd want to go with the Twister blade. All right, thanks for tuning in. Later.